Attention bowlers, we are going to get started from Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. This is the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. My name is Steve Kelly, and I will be your host and guide during this Class D North match between today's challengers, Win Trafton at Sarah Wright. It is good as always to have you along with us, originally live streamed on this Saturday, 4/20, April 20th. Just a little bit past 4:20 p.m., 4:55, but who's counting? Good as always to have you along with us, and if you're new to the ACST or Candlepin bowling in general, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to you and hope you enjoy this match and Candlepin bowling as a whole. And if you are a returning viewer, welcome back. Your continued viewership is greatly appreciated. For those interested, I would like to highlight two things. First, this broadcast will be available with subtitles and live captioning. I will also be providing audible descriptions of the play-by-play action as well as scoring to the best of my ability. If you have any questions or suggestions, please let me know in the comments. As always, a scoreboard on the stream should be considered as unofficial. The official scoreboard is kept on paper by the bowlers, so if you see any mistakes that I did not see, don't worry. The bowlers are also independently verifying this. All right, and we are off to the races. We are going to have Sarah Wright bowl first, and Sarah is going to get ready on lane 6. Sarah's opening ball on lane 6 is off to the right, a washout on the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4 down, 6 up. Take a zoomed in look on that on lane 6 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Again, Sarah Wright is our first bowler. Sarah Wright for a spare shot on lane 6. Sarah Wright for the season is 140 and 84, with a home record of 54 and 44 across 7 matches. Sarah Wright's away record is 86 and 40 across 9 matches. That's a 1.23 win-loss ratio for the home and 2.15 for away. So Sarah's away record is significantly better than her home record. Sarah's going to open with a 9 box. And it appears we might be having a slight glitch with the automatic scoring at Leda, so we're just going to pause for just a moment while we make an adjustment there. And in the meantime, take a look at Sarah Wright's stats. She's 5th overall in D North. She's the first seed in the wild card. Sarah's average is 100.9. Her home average is 97.5. Her away average is 103.5. And overall, again, Sarah is 2nd place in D North Division 1 ahead of Sherelle Nealand and Todd Holbrook, trailing Win Trafton, her opponent today. She is the number 1 seed in the wild card bracket and 5th place overall in D North. Sarah Wright's high single is 128. That was versus Kevin Martell in round 4, and that was a home game. In terms of a high series for the season, Sarah Wright has Sarah threw 563 versus Jonathan Hogan in round 15 in an away match, with 20 strikes, 133 spares, and 173 tens for the season. Towards the end of the season here, Sarah Wright is bowling for superlatives, and speaking of superlatives, there's a strike by Sarah Wright. She must have heard me. Sarah Wright with a strike on lane 5. That's 19 and a ball after 2. And it looks like we have corrected the automatic score issue, so we're off to the races. Sarah Wright filling a strike. Filling a strike on lane 5. Sarah Wright on lane 5. Her first ball of the strike fill is 6, dropping 4. The 4 horsemen left side, the 1, the 2, the 4, and the 7 pins on the deck. Sarah Wright's perfect box percentage is 41%. She has 8,073 seasonal total pins. Sarah Wright for the strike fill to complete it. She will take an 8 on that strike fill. That's an 18 box after 2. She has 27 after 2 officially. This third box will conclude this third ball will conclude the third box for Sarah. Wright will finish with an 8 box in the third. Getting the drop-off of Win Trafton in the beginning. She's at 35 after 3 with 1 mark already, and we're only 3 boxes into this 5-game series here at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Both Sarah Wright and myself just finished bowling the All-Star Review at Leda Lanes, and actually Sarah was bowling on these 2 lanes prior to that. And I was speaking with Sarah prior to the start of this match, and she said she didn't have the greatest time on lanes 5 and 6, but we'll see if this is any different. Sarah already had a strike. She's dropped 4 so far on lane 5, starting her 4th frame. And we're now going to see what Sarah Wright can do here for a spare on lane 5. Let's watch. Sarah fires. She's off to the left, connecting with nothing. The 1, the 3, the 6, the 10, the 5, and the 9 pins are on the deck for Sarah Wright. She's shooting for a 10 box. Sarah Wright, she has the 9th high series in the D class at 563. Sarah Wright will conclude with a 9 box in the 4th for 44 after 4. Sarah has the 9th most spares in the D class at 133. She has the 6th highest D-class perfect box percentage at 41%. That's +1 since February 5th, so she's made an improvement since then. Sarah Wright fires, first ball of the 5th frame. Spread eagle minus the 10. 5 up, 5 down. 4 spare. This is a difficult spare. We call this the spread eagle if the 10 pin was standing, but it's not, so we'll call it an eagle with a broken wing. Sarah now shooting for a spare. She's chosen the left pocket, and she almost kicks over. If the 10 pin was there, the 10 pin would have fallen, but she's left with the 3 and the 6 pin on the deck. Sarah with a 44 after 4. She has a very impressive half. Her average when she is home is 97.5. Her away average is 103.5. An excellent opening bid. She will take a 9 box to start out. To conclude the first half, Sarah is at 53 after 5. And we will now say hello to Win Trafton for the first time. Win Trafton, with a season record of 147 and 77. He's bowled 16 matches. When he's at home, his win-loss ratio is 2.29. That's a 73 and 34 ratio with 8 matches. When he's away, he has a 1.6 win-loss ratio with 69 and 43. Win Trafton fires on lane 5 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire, a late falling 8 drop. The 4 and the 7 pins are on the deck. Piece of wood, it's favorable. For a spare, Win Trafton stands to get an early mark in the first. Trafton winds up, play action. He pitches, hits the object wood, which does nothing but spin, slides to the right, still spinning, in fact. The 4 and the 7 pins remain on the deck. Pin still spinning off to the right. Trafton will be shooting for a 10 box now, same pins as before, 4 and 7. Excellent opening drop and just no luck on the spare shot. He will take an 8 box. Win Trafton with an 8 box in the first. And that's about all we can say about that. Surprising. I thought that was going to go, but it didn't. So Win Trafton has a season average of 101.3. That's the 7th highest in the D class overall. He has a home average of 101.4, away average of 101.2. Very consistent between home and away. Only 0.2. Sarah's gap, by comparison, is wider in terms of averages between home and away. Win Trafton dropping 6, leaving the 4 horsemen left side. The 1, the 2, the 4, and the 7 pins, and he runs down the 4 horsemen for a spare. That's Win Trafton on the spare. All he does is Win Trafton. That's 18 and a ball after 2 for Win. Both of our bowlers with marks in the second. As you can see, Sarah Wright had a strike in the second with an 8 fill after 2 balls. Win Trafton running down the left side spread eagle. He has 18 after 2. We'll switch the scoreboard here. Sorry about that. 18 after 2, Win Trafton's fill ball off the right of the head pin. Let's take a closer look at that. That's a 4 fill. Looked like a good bid, but he punched out a little bit more to the right. Half Worcester and then some. 7 pin down as well, along with a couple more in the back row. He takes a few more out for the road for the spare bid. No spare, but he's left with 3 on the deck, 7 down, 3 up. 1, 2, 4 for Win Trafton. We're at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Great to have you along. Thanks for watching. This is the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. late season D North class between two playoff contenders. That's a 9-box for Win Trafton, 31 after 3. Show you where we are at this point in the match. Win Trafton sits at 31 after 3. Sarah Wright, 35 after 3. And both of our bowlers, again, they are playing today more or less for superlatives and maybe trying to one-up each other in terms of playoff seeding, because Win Trafton is a division leader, so that means he's in the wild card by default, but he's only a few wins ahead of Sarah Wright, who is in the wild card bracket nonetheless. But if Sarah in particular can pull off a big win today, and I'm talking maybe double digits, there's a chance she and Win Trafton can swap in the playoff bracket. They're both most likely going to be in regardless, but it's just more or less about the superlatives, taking some extra points for some stat padding, and maybe just having fun overall. I was talking about this with both of our bowlers before we began the match today, and that's more or less how we're approaching it. I said, guys, above all else, let's just have some fun today, because the two of you are both in the playoffs. You've bowled excellent all season, and let's just put on a good show. Win Trafton again, so he leads D North Division 1. He's ahead of Sarah Wright. He's ahead of Sherelle Nealand and Todd Holbrook. Show you some perspective here. So division leaders, Win Trafton, Sarah Wright, right at the top of the wild card, but look at their win-loss ratio. Look at their wins and losses, 147 versus 140 between the two of them in particular. That's huge. And again, it's like within 7 wins or so, and double digits will sway that even more. Win Trafton dropping 7. This is the opener of his 5th box, the first ball. The 2, the 4, and the 7 pins are on the deck here. He's shooting for a spare. Win Trafton is going to fire the 2-4 pocket. And there also was an 8-pin behind it, but he gets it regardless. Regardless of my commentary, he will sit on a 50 half plus a ball. Compare that to Sarah Wright's closed 53 after 5. This is the first of 5. We are halfway done the first string here in the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour here at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Good as always to have you along with us. We already have 3 marks across both of our bowlers. Action-packed day here at Leda Lanes. Don't let the D in Class D deceive you. Class D stands for demolition, destruction, domination, all of that. Sarah Wright fires on lane 6, play action. That's a washout left side washout. 7-pin wiggling. And Sarah Wright has a difficult spare leave now. But it is possible. Hit the 1-3 pocket the right way, it'll get taken out, but only a few more get chopped out, where the 5-pin is mercifully spared by Sarah Wright. Shooting for a 10, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 possibilities for Sarah Wright on lane 6 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire on the Saturday afternoon, Saturday 4/20 at 5 p.m. That's a 5-7-10 split that Sarah is going to say goodbye to. That's a 7-box. 60-6 for Sarah Wright now. And what more can I say about Sarah Wright? Sarah Wright has the second most 10 boxes in the D class. Win Trafton, by comparison, is third with Sarah Wright's 173 10 boxes. 9 out of 16 of Sarah's matches have a 500 series or greater. Excuse me. The Massachusetts came out in me a little bit. In the past 5 matches, Sarah Wright has had a 46-point take-home, which is +4 compared to the previous 5 matches, which was a 42-point take-home. So Sarah Wright, again, has been improving, along with our perfect box percentage, which was +1 since February. Sarah Wright staring down a 6-10 for a 10 box. Let's take a zoomed-in look on that. Sarah Wright, play action. We'll take one more out for the road, and that looks like it's going to be a 9 box for Sarah Wright. 69-7 for Sarah Wright. Still well on track for her average with that strike in the beginning with an 8 fill, which is always good. With the exception of one outlier, Wright has a minimum of 8 10s per match. She will usually take 7.71 points per home match on average and 9.56 points per away match on average. 9 out of 16 of Sarah Wright's matches have been over 500 series total, and 6 of 16 have been over 520. Sarah Wright drops 8. That's the 2 and the 5 pins on the deck you're looking at. Sarah Wright on lane 6. Play action. She fires. Ball bounces a little, but it curves left for a spare. That's a spare for Sarah Wright. That's 79 plus a ball after 8 now. And we are nearing the end of the first string, and Sarah is banking up a lot of extra pins to definitely exceed her average, and then some. So we'll see where this goes. Sarah Wright has a big fill coming up here on lane 6. Most recently, Sarah Wright faced Todd Holbrook in round 16, which was an away match for her, but it was still at Leda. Kind of like today between her and Win Trafton, who are both based out of Leda. That's a 6 fill for Sarah, by the way, with the 4 horsemen on the right, 4 horsemen right side. In that match, Sarah took 10 points against Todd Holbrook with a 470 series, averaging 100.9. All of her games were in the 90s, with 1 strike, 3 spares, and 16 tens. Sarah missing that right side 4 horsemen, just a little bit off to the left of the head pin, sailing into the void while the void stares back. Sarah Wright's home lanes are here in Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. This will be Sarah's 4th game of the day that she's bowled after the All-Star Review, which was packed full of people, the best bowlers out of all the leagues for a one-day, 3-game tournament. That's a 9-box for Sarah Wright. That's 94-9 now with 1 to go. You are watching the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. I'm Steve Kelly. That's Sarah Wright on the right lane, lane 6, at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Needless to say. And today, again, both of these bowlers are playoff contenders, and they're more or less battling for bragging rights in terms of specific stats and perhaps maybe some positioning in the wild card and whatnot. Sarah Wright with a 6 drop. Kind of looks like a partial hay bale. 5, 6, 9, 10. I've occasionally heard a shot like this loosely referred to as like a Greek church or a Greek salad, something like that. I don't know why. But Sarah doesn't convert the spare. She's left with the 6 and the 10. She's over 100 with this 8 box out of a minimum. She can get 104 if she can take out the 6 and the 10 pins. On lane 6 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire, and she will get that 104 with a 10 box. So look at that. Sarah Wright over average. Just the conditions were all right, you might say. Sarah Wright with 104 in the first game of 5 here at Leda Lanes. Win Trafton with 50 plus a ball, and we will now say hello to Win Trafton once again here at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Good as always to have you along with us. Thanks for watching wherever you are on this Saturday 420. And Win Trafton now will be bowling on lane 6 here at Leda Lanes. Trafton, play action. Fires on the head pin on the left side pocket. Some pins fall, certainly. As to which ones, well, he's left with the 3, the 6, the 10, and the 7. And this is an interesting spread for Win Trafton. But redlining the piece of wood in front of the 3 should take it out, but he misses off to the left. Bit of a misfire for Win Trafton. 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10. And he filled that spare with 6. For those of you keeping score at home. Win Trafton will be a miss the second, get the 3rd situation. Not quite. He will get a 9 box because the 7 pin will not fall. The wood will just stop right in front of it for 65 and 6 for Win Trafton now. He trails. No, he doesn't trail. He exceeds Sarah Wright's 6th box score by 5. Sarah had 60. Win Trafton at 65. Trafton on lane 6 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. A sunny afternoon. Trafton punching right out. That's a left side half Worcester. The 2 and the 8 pins have been taken out, and not much more. And by not much more, I mean precisely none more. Trafton releasing, play action, and he completes the trip to Worcester. A full trip. That's only 4 down, unfortunately, though. So that's the 1, the 5, the 4, the 6, the 7, and the 10 for Mr. Win Trafton. All he does is Win Trafton, and he will complete the full Worcester for a painful 4 box in the 7th. That puts him at 69 after 7. That brings him back down to earth against Sarah Wright, tied precisely with Sarah. In a series where if either of these bowlers gets hot and takes a significant win margin today, they will be able to make some significant grounds against one another. Trafton on the head pin, and he takes it right out. He takes everything out for a strike. Matt Susi says, what a hammer. In the 8th, he's at 79 plus a ball. Very fast-moving, definitive strike for Win Trafton on lane 6 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Win Trafton. What can I tell you about Win Trafton? Overall, he is 3rd place in D class. That's D class, or excuse me, D North specifically. His high single was 143 against Chris Curley in week 6, and his high series was 547 against Sherelle Newland in week 16. He has 25 strikes, 124 spares, and 172 tens for the season. His perfect box percentage is 43%. He has 8,102 seasonal total pins, and that's a spare for Win Trafton. He just continues piling on the pins. Seems if I talk more about him in terms of stats, he seems to do better, as if it was some kind of good luck charm or something. Anyways, he's at 99 plus a ball in 9. He has to get to 104 or greater to take points. When you tie, you take 1. When you win the game, you take 2. If you take total, you take 4. If you tie for the total, you take 2. Win Trafton will drop 6 for a 6 fill on the spare. 105. He's officially taken the first game with that spare fill. But this will be a rather interesting spare leave for Win Trafton. Let's see how we can spin this. No pun intended. He hits full on the 4, 7, and 8 pins, leaving the 10 pin on the deck. And that will be a 9 or a 10 box, so it looks like he's shooting for a 115 potentially with a 114 minimum. On lane 6 here, Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Win Trafton fires, and it will be a 9 box to conclude the first. That's it for the first. 114 to 104. Win Trafton victorious over Sarah Wright in the first game here by a margin of 10 for both the game and the match. Still early. Trafton with 1 strike and 3 spares. Sarah Wright with 1 strike and 1 spare. For the D class, we've had a lot of marks already, and we still have 4 games to go here. No, all set. Sorry, Sarah was handing me the score sheet, but I'm keeping it digitally, so not a problem. And I can confirm that with actually 1 moment. You can go, yeah.
You guys don't correct the scores?
Just my score. Yeah. Sorry, I do have a correction. It looks like Win... What was that? Oh, I won't be. Don't worry. I have 1 score correction to make. Win Trafton had a 5 fill, so it's going to be 113, not 114. So just to make sure we're in sync. Actually, thank you, Sarah, for the paper copy. So it is 113, 104. We are going to move on to the second game here with Sarah Wright. Oh, good. Actually, you know what? That's why we have the paper copy, because, like I said, the on-stream score is unofficial. That's just me keeping track of it from back here. Sarah Wright with a 7 drop, missing the spare opportunity, leaving only the 6 pin on the deck. Not a bad position to be in. With a lot of wood, she's firing for a 10 box. Sarah Wright will take that 10 box to open up. Perfect so far, 10 after 1 for Sarah Wright. Here in the second. In case you missed it, Win Trafton concluded the first game with a 113. Sarah Wright concluded with a 104. Action-packed set of marks. 2 strikes already and 4 spares across both of our bowlers so far. Sarah Wright dropping 7, a wiggly 7, pin still falling, 8, 9. Everything down but the 5 pin. Single pin spare for Sarah Wright on lane 5. And this will be interesting. Hitting the wood on the left side could potentially redirect the ball in a negative way, but we'll see if it goes. It still goes regardless for Sarah Wright. That is a spare in the second, 20 plus a ball after 2. Sarah Wright again with a 140 and 84 win-loss record for the season. Compare that to Win Trafton's 147 and 77. So they're both very, very close to one another. Again, they're both in the playoff bracket already. And this is more or less just a duel for stats. Sarah dropping 6. That is 6 on that fill. 26 after 2 for Sarah Wright. She's shooting for a spare. 2, 4, 7, and 6 pins on the deck for Sarah Wright. And she's a little bit off to the left of the object pocket, taking out 2 and leaving 2 on the deck. 2 in the 6 pins on lane 5 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Sarah Wright play action. 2 pin falls and it dances around, but she's left for a 9 box, the 6 pin unaffected. 35 after 3 for Sarah Wright. My apologies for the camera move. I meant to raise the stand I had it on just so it wasn't going to be blocking anybody when they stood in front of it accidentally. I noticed that Win Trafton was doing that every once in a while, and it helps if I have the camera raised to the maximum height. So it's a little crooked, but just that's a positioning thing just based on where we physically are. So Win Trafton looking at the 5 and the 9 pins for a 10 box. She missed the spare. She fires. That's a 9 box. In the 4th for 44 and 4. It's a lot of 4s, but Sarah Wright is at 148 after 1.4 games. With 1 to go, she's had a mark and a half every time so far, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but Sarah Wright on lane 5. 3 marks for the day. She releases, and she's a little bit off target. That is a miss of the head pin. She takes out the 10 pin and the 10 pin only. But sometimes you can get really interesting spares from this, so don't count Sarah Wright out just yet. And Sarah on the head pin this time. No spare, but a few more pins taken out. Bear with me while I just fix the angles here. Sarah Wright shooting for a 10 box, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 for Sarah Wright. She will go for a 9 box. She's on the object pocket, but the 7 pin refuses to go, so Sarah will sit with a 53 after 5. Her minimum box was 9, so very close to a perfect half, or leaving very few pins spared, and a spare 6 definitely made up the difference there. So Sarah Wright over average, 53 after 5, and now we're going to say hello once again to Win Trafton. Win Trafton, who has 25 strikes, 124 spares, and 172 tens for the season. He has a perfect box percentage of 43. He has 8,102 seasonal total pins. Win Trafton opening up with an interesting drop. And interesting is the only way I can really describe that in terms of words that are coming to my mind. He's left with the 2 and the 7 on the spare shot. Now he's shooting for a 9 or a 10. It's Win Trafton in the yellow on lane 5 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. This is the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. Win Trafton releasing for a 10 box, and he will take that 10 box. Again, staying on pace with Sarah. 10 for 10 in the first. No pins lost. Take a look at where we are in the averages. We see Win Trafton and Sarah Wright neck and neck in terms of averages. So both these bowlers are very close in terms of, well, generally everything. Win Trafton off the head pin to the right. He's dropped 6. I was going to say 5, but a late pin fell. Win Trafton with the 5th high single in D class at 143, tied with Chris Curley. He has the 3rd most 10s in D class. Sarah Wright is 2nd with 172 10 boxes. No spare for Win Trafton, left with the 1, the 2, and the 10 pins. Win Trafton has the 3rd best perfect box percentage at 43%. That's +1 since March 28th, so he has improved since then. In the past 5 matches, he's earned 48 points. That's +1 from the previous set of 5. That'll be a 9 box for Win Trafton by my count. Excuse me, 8 box. Staying in sync with the scoreboard. Win Trafton firing 9 drop. 7 pin is left on the deck. And only the 7. That's a single pin spare on the corner. The left corner, that is. Piece of wood perpendicular to the 7 pin. And he will take it out rather easily for a spare. Win Trafton 28 plus a ball after 3. Win Trafton. 8 of his 16 matches have totaled over 500 for the series, and 6 of those 16 matches have been over 520. Trafton play action on the spare fill. And it looks like it's going to be a 4 fill by my count, as Win Trafton verbally confirms. Thank you, Win. 32 after 3 for Win Trafton now. Again, I'll remind you, if there's any mistakes on the on-stream scoreboard, don't worry, that is unofficial. A paper copy, which is not visible on stream, is the official copy. And when I have free moments, I will try to verify my score set with theirs, just to make sure we're not wildly out of sync. Win Trafton takes a few more out, and it looks like it's going to be an 8 box for Win. With that 8 box, he will take 40 after 4. With that 40 after 4, Win Trafton trails Sarah Wright by 4 in the second game. He took the first game, 113 to 104. But here in the second, at least at the half, Win Trafton has a little bit of ground to make up, particularly because that 4 fill. But will he get another strike here? A 9.5 drop with the 5 pin wiggling. Single pin spare for Win Trafton. So far, he's been mostly on target for these. Piece of wood slightly to the left of the 5 pin could guide the ball if he's off to the left, and ooh, the ball misses slightly to the right of the 5 pin. Single pin spare opportunity missed for Win Trafton. So shooting for a 10 box for a potential 50 half. He will take that 50 half. That's a 10 box, his second 10 box of this game. 50 after 5 for Win Trafton. And that is the end of the first half of the second game. Let's take a look at the superlatives before Sarah Wright starts bowling. As you can see, the two of them are neck and neck in a lot of areas, particularly in total 10s. Sarah Wright's hanging out in the high series section of the ACST D class. Perfect box percentage. Win Trafton is 43, Sarah Wright 41, with just Jonathan Hogan and Will Kasikany. My apologies, my pronunciation is not good today. But Sarah Wright will fire on lane 6 and take 5 to start out with. So my take on this shot is that it's a spread eagle minus the 2 with a piece of wood in front of the 3, but it's a fair distance out from the 3. I'd say maybe red line it or hit somewhere to the right of the red line, but velocity will come into play on this shot. Sarah Wright will miss that object wood though, and she'll take a few more out, and now she's looking at a 7, 8, 9, or 10 box. It is the 3, the 4, and the 7 pins. And this is Leda Lanes, and I'm Steve Kelly, and that's Sarah Wright. This is the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. Thanks for watching. That's 9 pins down, and that will conclude the box for Sarah Wright. That's 9 after 6, 62 after 6 with that 9 box. Sarah Wright with 4 9 boxes in a row this game, coming off of a 10 box and a spare with a 6 fill. Confirming we are in sync with the automatic scoreboard at this time. Sarah Wright releases on lane 6, and that is an 8 drop right off the start of the box. That's a 6-10. Should be a fairly easy layup spare, but we'll see what happens. Sarah Wright winds up, releases, play action on the 6-10, and she gets it. Very nice controlled ball that guides itself into the 6-10 for a spare for 72 plus a ball for Sarah Wright. Sarah Wright with a mark in the second half and the first half of this game. She's at 4 marks total, 1 strike, 3 spares. Sarah Wright now filling a spare. And a fill it shall be. It's going to be a 6 fill by the looks of it. 78 after 7 for Sarah Wright. The 1, the 2, the 4, and the 10 pin stand. No wood. Right. Play action. Wide right miss into the gap between the 1 and the 10 pins. 1, 2, 4, and 10 pins. On the deck at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. That's Sarah Wright on lane 6. I'm Steve Kelly. Win Trafton off screen while he waits for Sarah Wright to finish. Sarah Wright misses again, almost in the same spot. That's going to be a 6 box for Sarah Wright. For 84 and 8, still on average, still on target for Sarah Wright. An extra mark could definitely help her against Win Trafton's tendency to make spares and get some explosive strikes like we saw in the first game. But we'll see where this goes. Sarah Wright on lane 6. Leda Lanes, Nashua, New Hampshire. Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. Class D North. Sarah Wright is on the 1-2 pocket. The pin's still following. Pin's still wiggling. 5, 6, 9, 10, 7. Piece of wood in front of the 5 and the 6. You almost need to have some kind of a curveball to sort of hope of taking out the 7 pin in addition to the right side hay bale. Lane 6, Sarah Wright red lines it, but hits it a little bit full. Takes out the right half, leaving the 7 pin. So she's going to look at a 9 or a 10 box. And it looks like it's going to be a 10 box for Sarah Wright. I'm going to have to verify a couple of scores here because the automatic scoreboard is a little bit off, although Win Trafton appears to be making that correction right now, so stand by for that. By my count, it should be 94, but we'll see where we're at with that. All scores on the stream are unofficial. Good time to remind. Okay, so on the scoreboard, it looks like actually it was a 5 fill on the spare and a 5 box and a 9 box for the 9th. So Sarah is actually looking at 91 and 9. Again, just following what I'm seeing with what the bowlers are officially keeping track of. Sarah Wright with a 6 drop. The 1, the 7, 10, and 6. For the spare, Sarah Wright on the correct object pin. The 6 and 7 follow suit, but the 10 pin remains. Sarah Wright at an even 100 right now. Will she make it 101? Let's find out. Play action. She releases. That's a 9 box. It's going to be an even 100 for Sarah Wright. Again, we'll verify this all at the end. As maybe my eyes just didn't see things correctly. I thought there were maybe a couple extra pins here and there, but I will verify with the bowlers when I have a free moment. So that's 100 for Sarah Wright in the second for a 2-game total of 204 at the moment by the looks of things. As Win Trafton now stands up to bowl on lane 6 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. I'm Steve Kelly. That's Win Trafton in the yellow on lane 6, and he's on the head pin, and that's a strike. A very fast-moving strike for Win Trafton. Really, really fast-moving strike, I might add. I almost looked away and didn't even realize he had thrown the ball and released, and holy crap. 60 plus a ball in the 6 for Win Trafton. Remember I was talking about Win Trafton's ability to get strikes explosively kind of out of nowhere. That's what's been happening. He's on the pocket again, nearly a double strike. Drops 9. Drops 9, and it was a definitive 9 drop too. That was a no extra wood or anything flying around pushing. 7 pin remaining for Win Trafton. And he fouls it off. That's a 9 fill and a 9 box. Should be 78 after 7 after the dust clears in terms of the points. We'll confirm that in just a little bit here. While we have a free moment, let's take a look at some more superlatives. Hey, Win Trafton, the 5th place high single, 143. The range between 152 and 133 is right in the center. Sarah Wright hanging out at 9th place in terms of total spares. And so we're at Leda Lanes today. Established 1959. There's 36 lanes. That's a few lanes fewer than Academy. And there's a brand new automatic score system here at Leda Lanes known as Cubica AMF. BES appears to be the operating system / software being used. And that's a 6 drop for Win Trafton. Let's take a closer look at that. It's a 6 drop, the 3, 5, 6, and 10 pins. 2 more are taken out. The 5 and the 3 pins are left. 86 so far for Win Trafton with the potential for 88 if he can take this 10 box out. Lane 6, he releases, and that's going to be an 8 box for Win Trafton. 86 after 8 with an 8 box. Confirmed. Sarah Wright with an 82 at the same point in the game. Win Trafton on lane 6 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. And that's a wild pitch off to the left. Takes out the 7 pin and the 7 pin only. Must have been the jitters or something. Not sure what happened there, but it was a bit of a wild ball for Win Trafton. He's been doing very well up to this point, and he's off the head pin again to the left. The 1, the 5, the 3, the 9, the 6, and the 10. And he's shooting for a 10 box now, currently at 90. Hopefully he can get to 96 if he can take the rest of these out. He's on the head pin. The head pin, though, doesn't quite cooperate. He's left with the right side hay bale for what appears to be a 5 box. Should be 91 after all is said and done for Win Trafton in the 9th. And he is tied squarely with Sarah Wright at this point. Sarah Wright finishing with a 100. Win Trafton, despite having 2 marks for the day, he's having some trouble maintaining this, it seems. He's on the head pin and fires, and it looks like he's got a left side inverted check mark. That's the 2, the 4, the 5, and the 7 pins on the deck. Spare shot. 2-4, 2-5 pocket will take it out, and he will do precisely that. That's a spare for Win Trafton. 101, and that appears to be something. And I say something because I am just checking a couple things. We have Matt Susi down here. Looks like we're making a couple of score corrections just to make sure we're totally in sync, because the score system gave him a strike when it should have been a spare, and now he is at 101. There we go. Thought I was going crazy there for a minute. Thank you, Matt Susi, for coming in to fix the chaos that is the Cubica AMF on max scoring system sensors. Trafton on a spare fill. On the head pin, he will drop 8 for an additional 8 on that fill for 109. Victorious over Sarah Wright's 100. Scores are unofficial on the streaming scoreboard, and I will confirm this, but at the moment, Sarah Wright down by 9 to Win Trafton in the second. Win Trafton has taken 2 games, 4 points so far, 109 to 100. 2-game total of 222 for Win Trafton, 2-game total of 204 for Sarah Wright. We'll move on to the third game, and if I can just sneak down to the bowlers area to confirm on the paper copy, I will make sure that those scores are correct. Give me one moment. And that is confirmed. I just came down to sneak a peek at that, and those are the official scores. Win Trafton with 103 and 109, Sarah Wright with 104 and 100. Those are confirmed on the paper copy. Sarah Wright dropping 5. On lane 5, at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire, the 1, the 2, the 4, the 7, and the 8 pins with a piece of wood kind of hanging out in between the 4 horsemen. Sarah Wright on the pocket, a little bit too full though. The 4 and the 7 pins stand tall for an 8, 9, or 10 box for Sarah Wright. At the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour, this Class D North match between 2 playoff contenders, Sarah Wright and Win Trafton. Season average of 100.9 for Sarah Wright. Her home average 97.5, away average 103.5. Sarah Wright will take a 9 box. Start out the third game here, 3rd of 5. Sarah Wright on lane 5. Up to this point, Win Trafton has taken both the first and the second games. Sarah drops 7 on lane 5, leaving the 5, the 7, and the 8 pins. The 5, the 7, and the 8 pins on the deck. Piece of wood slightly to the left of the front of the 5 pin. And in front of the 8 pin. Excuse me, the 5, the 8, and the 9, not the 5, the 7, the 8. What am I talking about? Regardless, Sarah doesn't get the spare. She takes out the 8 pin, the 8 pin only. The 5 and the 9 pins are on the deck with no wood for a 10 box now. Sarah releases for a 10 box. She'll get that 10 box. 19 after 2 for Sarah Wright. Both of our bowlers averaging over 100 today. That's over par for Class D for the most part. Always good to see good bowling like this, and regardless of what ACST class this is. Sarah Wright releases on lane 5 on the 1-3 pocket, and she definitely deserved a lot more pins than what fell. She's left with the left side hay bale plus the 10 pins. The 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10. Lane 5 at Leda Lanes. That's Sarah Wright bowling on lane 5. On the pocket, on the correct target pin, but she's left with the 8 and the 10. She's at 27 with a potential for 29 here in the third. 8, 9, or 10 box for Sarah Wright. Piece of wood in front of the 8 pin. I don't think it's going to be super helpful. It might kick the 10 pin down and deflect from the 8, but she'll miss both, so we won't quite know for sure. There's an 8 box for Sarah Wright. 27 after 3. Up in the match, Sarah is up by 9, but the point in the match is uneven, so we will reassess that once we get to the conclusion of the first half of this third game of 5. Sarah Wright fires. She drops 6 and is left with what we call a banana split, the 4, 6, 7, 10. No wood to help Sarah Wright. You can either try a trick shot in the second to hope you take all 4 pins out. Otherwise, you just try to pin it out and move on to the next box. Sarah takes one more out for the road, the 6, 7, 10 on the deck. And you basically have to pick a side, and there's a side I'd pick. I'd pick the right side to at least pin out 2 more sticks. Sarah Wright for the 6, 10. Takes the 6, 10 out, leaves the 7, sacrifices the 7 for 36 after 4 for that 9 box for Sarah Wright. In situations like that, you just have to pin it out. So 36 after 4 for Sarah Wright. Nearly 3.5 game total at 240 plus a box here for Sarah. Sarah Wright takes home 7.71 points per home match, 9.56 points per away match. That's Sarah Wright washing out the right side of the deck. Pin still falling. The head pin does go eventually. She found the head pins in one way or another. 2, 4, 7, 8, and 10 pins on the deck. Piece of wood diagonal to the 2 pin and slightly in front of it. Gently capping it or maybe redlining it could take everything out. Sarah hits it a little bit to the left of the red line, takes out just a few for the road, leaving the 2, the 7, and the 8 pins. By my count. Sarah Wright shooting for a 10 box on lane 5, and she will take a 9 box in the 5th. For 45 after 5, that Sarah will sit on for a 3.5 game total of 249 for Sarah Wright at this time. We will now see how Win Trafton will respond to such something. Anyways, let's look at Win Trafton again. He's 3rd overall in the D North Division 1, or D North overall, and he's a division leader, needless to say. He's in the playoffs by default, but if Sarah takes basically the rest of the points today, there's a chance that could be upset, but Win Trafton so far has been defending his title quite nicely. Win Trafton with a left side 4-pin drop. Some might call that a lemon drop. Second ball spare ball, a little better, but no spare to speak of. 1, 2, and 9 pins on lane 5 for Win Trafton. For a 7, 8, 9, or 10 box, he shoots, play action, pins flying. 9 box for Win Trafton to start out. On pace with Sarah Wright for 9 after 1. And we'll take a look at Win Trafton. So he has the 2nd most 10 boxes in the D class, 9 out of his 16 matches with a 500 series or greater. And he's +4 for the past 5 matches in terms of point take home, 46 versus 42. Win Trafton this time dropping 7 on the first ball. Left with the 1, the 3, and the 8 pins. Sort of almost... Oh, and the 9 pin. There is a sleeper. It's hard to see, but just eyeballed it. Win Trafton misses the object pocket. Pins dance around, but the 3 pin stays. Win Trafton for a 10 box now. Winds up. And the pitch. And connects with nothing for a 9 box. That's 2 9s in a row for Win Trafton. 18 after 2. For Mr. Win Trafton. Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire features 36 lanes and has Kegler's Den, which is awesome bar, awesome food, awesome drink. Opened in 1959, that's about 64 years ago. The main building of Leda Lanes features all wood approaches and all wood lanes with sensor-based automatic scoring. Recently upgraded to BES by Cubica AMF. 18 lanes on each side of the house at Leda Lanes. We are bowling on the lanes 1 through 18 side, which are allegedly transplanted from Winnipeg's Gate City Bowl, which was formerly located on the Daniel Webster Highway in Nashua, donated and transplanted to Leda Lanes after the former alley closed. And that is a 10 box for Win Trafton. That's 28 after 3. Compare that to Sarah Wright's 27 after 3. In 2006, Leda's Lighthouse was built. That's a glow bowling building across the parking lot from Leda Lanes. I worked there on the day it opened. Great for birthday parties, great for glow bowling. Lots of loud music and crazy sensory overload in all cases of the word. But back to the main building of Leda Lanes, I'd say it's kind of a different personality on each side. This particular side of the house is much slower, throwing hard punches out a little bit more on lanes 1 through 18 than it would on lanes 36. Today, for the All-Star Review, I bowled on lanes 1 and 2, and lanes 1 and 2 are dreadful to bowl on in terms of getting ripped off on some shots and stuff. Anyways, that's a 9 box for Win Trafton, another 9 box for 37 after 4. Compare that to Sarah Wright's 36 after 4. I know when I was bowling on lanes 1 and 2 today at Leda Lanes, I was dealing with almost every one of my first balls in my frames were headpin shots, but I was left with just these impossible leaves. And that's just what happens sometimes in Candlepin bowling. I had one game where that happened and I couldn't convert any spares, and then the one game after I got all the spares, and I changed effectively nothing in terms of my release. So Candlepin bowling. Win Trafton dropping 8, the 5 and the 10. Right side setback, as we call it. He misses that spare. Let's get a closer look at that. Piece of wood in front of the 5 pin. Hitting that piece of wood to the left of the red line likely will be enough to kick it over, or you could try your luck at capping the right side of it. But Win Trafton hits it more full. That's another 9 box for Win Trafton. Almost a perfect half of 9s, except for the 10 box in the third, making a symmetrical half. 46 after 5 for Win Trafton. Actually, I will double check on that because it appears that the third frame is registered as an 8 on the automatic scoreboard. So I will key it in as an 8 just to stay in sync with what is up on the automatic scoreboard, but we'll double check everything. Again, the stream scoreboard is unofficial. This is me exhaustively just trying to keep track of some of the changes from a distance, or some of the scores from a distance. So actually, yes, to be continued on that. Because I'm looking at win score, and it should be 46. Oh, yes, it is. You know what? Never mind. It is 46 after 5 for Win Trafton. My apologies. I think one of the reasons that things are a little bit goofy on the scores is because our bowlers elected to bowl in the opposite order of what I anticipated them bowling at. And since their totals are so close together, I got confused and thought win score was Sarah's score and vice versa. So my apologies on that. That's more of a goof on my part. Sarah Wright will take a 9 box here in the 6th. I'm sure they'll dock my pay for that one. Sarah Wright is at 54 after 6. Win Trafton at 46 after 5, where Sarah Wright was at 45 after 5. And I'm not hallucinating that this time. That is in sync with what's on the automatic scoreboard. Sarah Wright, play action. Lane 6 off the left of the pocket. The ball curved right at the last minute. And she is left with a smattering of pins. The 1, the 3, the 6, the 9, the 4, and the 7. Difficult spare leave. No wood to help Sarah Wright. Sarah Wright releases right through the void in which the first ball also connected with. So consistent, but unfortunately consistent doesn't always land in results in Candlepin bowling, especially if you take out the pins that have already been taken out, because we can't award double. Sarah Wright for a 10 box on lane 6 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. She's on the 1-3 pocket, and will it go? That was an excellent recovery by Sarah Wright. That's a 10 box. 64 in 7 for Sarah Wright. Excellent pinning action right there in this Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour Class D North match between our two playoff contenders, Win Trafton and Sarah Wright. I'm Steve Kelly. It's been an excellent Saturday afternoon, this 4/20, April 20, early evening hours here at Leda Lanes. Great to have you along. Thanks for watching, wherever you are, whenever you are. Sarah Wright drops 7, the 7, 9, 5 pins for a spare leave. What'll it be for Sarah Wright? This will be a difficult spare leave with that piece of wood in front of the 5 pin. Not sure how this is going to go, Sarah Wright, but Sarah Wright throws it just light enough where the ball careens to the left and gently convinces the 7 pin to go down. That is 74 plus a ball in 8 for Sarah Wright. That was Sarah Wright's first mark of the game. Up to this point, she has thrown mostly 9s and 10s, but that's a spare. This is a fill on that spare, and it's a little bit full. That's a 5 fill on the pocket, but hitting a little bit straight through. 79 and 8 for Sarah Wright. 84 and pending in the 9th. Sarah Wright for the spare. What's it going to be? And she misses the 3-6 pocket. And she's left with the 3, 4, and 7 pins on the deck. She took out the 6-10. 7, 8, 9, or 10 box possibility for Sarah Wright on lane 6 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. She will take out all but the 6 pin for a 9 box. That's 88 in 9 for Sarah Wright. Lanes 33 and 34 and Leda Lanes in particular are famous for being the lanes featured in the tapings for Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS TV 50 in the late 90s and early 2000s after the show transitioned away from the late Park Place lanes in Windham, New Hampshire. The show saw rebranding of graphics, music, intros, and hosts, with Dick Lutz and Mike Morin replacing Doug Brown and Dan Murphy around that time. The show was hosted at Leda Lanes until it ended in 2005 after WNDS itself was wound down after a series of buyouts and overall transitions when it came to television and entertainment technologies changing. You know, the whole thing with analog to digital, traditional TV kind of dying out, all that kind of stuff. Sarah Wright dropping 5 on the first ball. 1, 2, 4, 8, and 10 pins. She's on the pocket, and she takes a spare. Very well done spare for Sarah Wright. The second spare of the game, second spare of the half. 98 plus a ball for Sarah Wright. Lanes 33 and 34 at Leda Lanes are still considered the kind of special lanes, and they still have all the lighting fixtures and TV fixins up on the ceiling when they were used for Candlepin Stars and Strikes, and they're still used from time to time when newer shows are filmed here, such as the newly rebooted Candlepin Skins, as well as Candlepins for Cancer. Sarah Wright is filling a spare. She's at 98 plus a ball. Actually, you know what? We're going to zoom in on this because this is the final ball of the third game here for Sarah. Sarah releases play action, and she washes out the left side, and that looks like that's going to be a 3 fill for a 101 game for Sarah. That's the conclusion of the third game for Sarah. 3 game total of 305 unofficially with that 101. She had 104, 100, and 101 to total 305. Averaging well over 100 up to this point. Take a look here. So as you can see in D North Division 1, Win Trafton and Sarah Wright are effectively neck and neck. And then overall in the wild card, we have Win Trafton and Sarah Wright kind of fighting to see who can trade places, but although at this point With Win Trafton at 4 and Sarah Wright at 2, there is a chance that Win Trafton could hold that position, although Sarah, at the moment, is holding the total. So we'll see how things kind of shake out by the end of this match. Win Trafton working on the second half. He dropped 5, the 4 horseman right side plus the 7 pin on the deck. He's on the pocket, runs down the right side 4 horseman, but a pin dances around off the sidewall and doesn't take out the 7 pin. That's another 9 box for Win Trafton. That's a third in a row, 55 and 6 for Win Trafton. Win Trafton firing, and he drops 7, 7.5, and looks like it might be 8. Yes, it will be 8. What am I saying? I looked at it, and for some reason I said, that might be 8. No, it is 8. It was a 5, 7, 10, potentially a Matt Susi special, but the 5 pin fell down, and he hits the wrong bit of wood that was a little bit too far out of the front. Takes out nothing, leaving the 7 and the 10. So no spare for Win Trafton. And he's looking at an 8, 9, or 10 box. Potential 65, and it's going to be a 9 box for 64. 64 after 7 for Win Trafton. And, oh my goodness, so let's take a look here. So, yes, let's, my apologies. I'm not much of a sportscaster who reads comments during the match, but I just took a second to try to partition my brain a little bit to try to read them and try to catch up. It's just a little bit tough to do that all at once. So John, in the comments, I can try to kind of riff off of how I built this system and maybe explain a little bit how it works. The explanation might be a little bit less exciting than it actually seems. The scoreboard you are seeing on the stream is actually entirely Microsoft Excel. The fonts and stuff that I put together are very similar to the CompuScore fonts, or generally early 90s IBM CGA style graphical fonts. And that was done by me to sort of kind of pay tribute to the older days of Candlepin bowling, the early electronic scoreboard days. Plus, I just generally like that font. It kind of gives you the Apple II Oregon Trail kind of vibes, or MS-DOS or whatever. And it also just kind of looks really legible on stream. That's kind of where I wanted to look like that. I wanted to kind of take what CompuScore currently does, at like Lakeside Lanes or Academy Lanes or wherever else that has it, and just kind of maybe try to make a fun aesthetic, but my own take on it. So you might call that clean room reverse engineering, where I just took a bunch of reference photos of scoreboards at Lakeside and stuff, and then adjusted some colors and tried to make some optimizations to kind of make it a little more modernized, maybe have more than 5 characters for a name on the stream on the screen at once. But overall kind of try to maintain the spirit of it. And also I wanted to rebuild my scoreboard to make it kind of horizontally oriented rather than vertically, because it just kind of works in terms of a widescreen layout. And that's going to be a 7 box for Win Trafton. Sorry, I'm yakking here, and I will just make sure that we are in sync. Looks like Win actually took an 8 box in the 8th, so he sits at 79 after 9 according to the automatic scoreboard. Again, I can't stress enough that the scoreboard you are seeing on the stream is unofficial. What I'm keeping track of from way back here in the back rows has nothing to do with the official score, other than just I hope it is somewhat close to the actual score based on how I'm just keeping tabs of it back here, and I run up to check the paper copy every now and then when I have a free moment. So anyways, my apologies. Win Trafton hasn't really scored any marks since then. He's looking at an 8, 9, or 10 box to finish the 3rd game here. Possible 89 game. Looks like it's going to be 88 with that 9 box, and it will be. So Sarah Wright will take points this game. First time Sarah Wright has taken a game today with that 101 to Win Trafton's 88. As the conclusion of the 3rd, Win Trafton with a 3-game total of 310, Sarah Wright with a 3-game total of 305. Win Trafton retains the match lead by 5. So it is a close match in terms of match total. And we have 2 games to go. So between those two games, there's 2 points per each game, and there's also 4 points for the total. So we still have 8 points that can be distributed freely before we conclude today. Sarah Wright will be getting ready to start up on lane 5 as I just adjust my scoreboard to reset here for the 5th game. Bear with me one moment while we just do that. There we go. Sarah Wright on lane 5. Play action. First ball of the 4th game. Not 5th game, 4th game. And Sarah Wright drops 5. The 4 horsemen right side and the 7 pin are left on the deck. The 1, the 3, the 6, the 10, and the 7 pin. Sarah Wright for a spare ball. On the pocket, she hit it the correct way. She runs down the 4 horsemen on the right side, but nothing kicks over to the 7 pin. So it was definitely an excellent spare bid for Sarah Wright, but unfortunately, that's Candlepin bowling for you. Sometimes the right ball will still not be enough to take everything out. Sarah for the 3rd ball, 10 box. She will take that 10 box to start this 4th game outright with a 10 box. Excellent for those with a 100 average, just like Sarah Wright. Sarah Wright technically has a 100.9 season average. When she's away, it's 103.5. When she's home, it's 97.5. Both she and Win Trafton call Leda Lanes home. It's an 8 drop for Sarah Wright. 5 and the 8 pins are on the deck after the dust has settled. And it's going to be an interesting 2-pin spare opportunity given where this wood settles. In the official rules, you have to wait till the wood settles down to a reasonable degree. And it also just helps if you're a bowler and you want to know what you're shooting at. You don't want stuff moving while you're throwing the ball. Sarah Wright for a spare. Will she take out the 5 and the 8? She will. That's a good spare for Sarah Wright, 20 plus a ball. Oh, and so then to kind of continue the slight explanation of how all these graphics work. So yes, I'm basically kind of doing everything in a modern system, but I'm just using old IBM CGA fonts or monospaced fonts, because monospaced fonts really help in terms of lining things up when there's varied things like names or numbers. If you can predict how wide a single character can be, you can then make cells in Excel predictably configured in terms of width, and that really helps when it comes to games like bowling where the numbers and the width distributions can be wildly varied. So Sarah with a 6 on that fill. Sorry, I'm getting distracted once again by the technical jargon. She's on the 1-7-10, the high-low jack, the TV50 shot. Not the TV50 shot, the Channel 5 shot, not the TV50 shot, actually. That's an 8 box for Sarah. She connects with the 1, the 7, and the 10 are spared. Not actually spared, but you know what I mean. She's at 34 after 3. If you're wondering what software this is just plain old OBS. It's a gaming, streaming software primarily, but it works great also as just a general live event switcher kind of thing. Some of the other guys on Candlepin Bowling Network might use Streamlabs or some other kind of stuff, although Streamlabs is technically just a fork of OBS when you get down to it. But for me, I've just always used plain old OBS. Sarah Wright drops some pins on the first, and the second she takes only the head pin out with a couple of pins wiggling. The 2, the 4, the 7, and the 10 pins are on the deck. Some wood protecting the 2, 4, 7, but it could kick over to the 10 if you hit the 2, 4 pocket on this. Sarah Wright shooting for potentially a 44 after 4, and she does. That's a I almost said strike. 10 box for Sarah Wright. 44 after 4. With 1 more to go before she sits. This is the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. I'm Steve Kelly. That's Sarah Wright bowling right now on lane 5. Sarah Wright in the black shirt on the left. Sarah Wright fires. Play action. Lane 5. To the left of the head pin. Nearly a strike without hitting the head pin. There is some talent to getting a strike without hitting the head pin, let me tell you. She takes out 9 pins, leaving only the head pin. Single pin spare. This will be a good mark to sit on for Sarah Wright. She's only gotten 1 mark this half so far, which is not bad per se. Will she get a single pin spare? Yes, she will. That's another spare for Sarah Wright. She's looking at a 54 half plus a ball. So she will conclude that half when she returns to the lanes, but in the meantime, we have Win Trafton coming up on deck here. So let's take a look. So if you guys like Candlepin bowling or are more interested in Candlepin bowling and want to see a lot more Candlepin bowling, I got some Candlepin bowling resources for you. There's youtube.com/Candlepin Bowling Network and youtube.com/Candlepin Corner. Candlepin Corner has the Skins show, which is actively taping and airing roll-offs, or having roll-offs and actively taping tapings. I don't think we tape things anymore, but you know what I mean. And meanwhile, on Candlepin Bowling Network, the place to watch the bowlers, we have the Friday Night Pro League, the Pro Series, and all kinds of other things. Anyways, that's a spare for Win Trafton right off the bat. Before I can even complete the sentence, that's 10 plus a ball after 1 for Win Trafton to start out this 4th game of 5 here at the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. If you're just tuning in, thanks for tuning in. You've still got about a game and a half here to watch in terms of Sarah Wright, and for Win Trafton, it's like 1.9 games. Win Trafton filling a spare. He throws the ball a little bit hard, a little bit full, but generous amount of pins fall. That looks like a 6 fill by my aging eyes here. That's 16 after 1 for Win Trafton. Let's see what Win Trafton can do. Will he get another spare? The 1 and the 8 pins are left on the deck. No second spare for Win Trafton. Win Trafton with an impressive amount of marks today. He's got 2 strikes and 6 spares so far. Compare that to Sarah Wright's 1 strike and 7 spares. Trafton will take a 9 box for 25 after 2. Here in the 4th of 4. If we ended the game right now, Trafton would have 4 points. Sarah Wright would have 6 points because she currently has the total. That's been being passed around, so we won't factor that in until the 5th game. Win Trafton on the head pin, dropping 8, leaving the 3 and the 10 pins. It's a quick falling 8, a tight 8, 3-10. It's the 4 horsemen minus the 1 and the 6. Fun facts, there will be a quiz later to get your Candlepin bowling license. Win Trafton for the spare, and he sails through the void, connects with the already fallen 6 pin. Needless to say, that doesn't net you a spare. 8, 9, or 10 box for Win Trafton now on lane 5. At Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire, Trafton fires, play action, and once again he misses in the same exact spot. 8 box for Win Trafton, 33 after 3 for Mr. Trafton. Compare that to Sarah Wright, who was at 34 after 3 at the same point in the game. Both bowlers, again, statistically they are very close to one another, and this match has been no exception. It's been coming down to marks and fills in terms of who takes what in terms of game and match thus far. Win Trafton dropping 6 off the bat, leaving the 4 horsemen left side, the 1, the 2, the 4, and the 7 pins on the deck. Win Trafton versus the 4 horsemen. He takes out half of the 4 horsemen, 75% of the 4 horsemen. The 7 pin falls late, left only with the head pin on the deck for a 10 box. He's looking at a 9 or 10 box now, Mr. Trafton. Lane 5, Trafton in the yellow, and that's a 10 box for Win Trafton. Sarah Wright also at a 10 box on the 4th. He's at 43 after 4. And Sarah Wright was at 44 after 4 at the same point in the match. Difference being a 10 and a 9 box between the two of them. Trafton releases on that 1-3 pocket, and he deserves so many more pins than what actually went down. Piece of wood rolling out of play on lane 5. Safely out of harm's way. Left with the 4, the 5, the 7, 8, 9, and 10 with very little wood to help him. How do you play this? Maybe hit the double buffered wood and hope for the best. Looks like Trafton thought of that too. Pin's falling, pin's still falling. The 4 pin is the only one that doesn't go. He made an excellent bid for it. That was basically what I thought was going to happen. So for a 9 or 10 box now, Win Trafton is looking at a potential 53 half. Lane 5, Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire, and he will take a 10 box. That will be a 53 half. 53 half for Win Trafton. Let's take a look at where we are. So after 4.5 games, Win Trafton's at 363, Sarah Wright at 359 plus a ball. Sarah Wright 54 plus a ball in the 5th. Win Trafton 53 after 5. If we ended the game right now, they both have 4 points apiece. The total is only within 4 pins in Trafton's favor right now. Sarah Wright up in the game by 1, so plenty of points being juggled all around. I don't know how this is going to end, folks, but this is a competitive match. Lots of marks today for both of our bowlers. Sarah Wright on the right side, and that's a spare fill of what appears to be 3. I will pen that in as 3. That's what it says up on the scoreboard. That's 57-5 for Sarah Wright after the dust has settled. Up by 4 against Win Trafton at the half of the 4th. Sarah Wright fires for the spare and takes a few more out, certainly. The 7, 8, 10, and 6 are on the deck. There we go. 57 after 5 for Sarah Wright, with a potential for 67 after 5 if she can make this admittedly difficult 10-box attempt. Sarah Wright chooses to take one more out for a 7. I think she was trying to play the wood. I think I know what she was trying to do, but just didn't work out. 64 after 6 for Sarah Wright. So, folks, if you think this is fun, if you think Candlepin bowling is your thing, well, I got news for you. If you live in New England, there's Candlepin bowling everywhere. Just take a look around you. But specifically, go to candlepin.org and click Go Bowling to find your nearest center. We're at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. There is a bowling center in all major cities in New Hampshire. We have Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. We have Lakeside Lanes in Manchester, New Hampshire. We have Boutwell's Bowling Center up in Concord, New Hampshire. And there's also a whole bunch of others that I haven't named or haven't remembered. We also have Portsmouth, Bowlerama, and if you live in the Peterborough area, there's Peterborough. And anyways, that's a spare for Sarah Wright. I'll stop yakking now. That's a 9 drop and a cleanup on Sarah Wright's part. 74 plus a ball after 7. We are off to the races, folks. Sarah Wright and Win Trafton again. They're very close in terms of the standings. Win or lose, either of these bowlers are still going to go to the playoffs. This is just more of a battle for seed position at this point. Like I was mentioning earlier, I was talking with Sarah Wright and Win Trafton. We said, guys, let's just have fun with this because both of you are in the playoffs. The pressure is largely off. Let's just try to put on a good show here, and so far they have. There's been a lot of marks so far. Sarah Wright with a 6 on that fill. Banana split, 4, 6, 7, 10. She picks a side. She picks the right side, takes out the 6 and the 10. The 4 and the 7 are on the deck. That's 80 after 7 for Sarah Wright. On track for her average. Actually, far beyond her average, which is good. This is like Class C or Class B level bowling right here. That's a 10 box for Sarah Wright. She has 3 marks for the game. 90 after 8. I definitely think Sarah Wright and Win Trafton are definitely going to jump up to C class or heck, maybe even B class. I don't know. Don't know where it's gonna land, but next year we're actually adding a whole new class to the ACST, and that's the E class, and that's just because we have so many people interested in the ACST. Contact Danny Finn on the Candlepin Chat Facebook group if you're interested in the ACST. Sign-ups are ongoing. The league for next year is now forming. Good time to get in on it if you want to. Sarah Wright drops 8. And it looks like she's left with the goalposts, the 4 and the 6 pins. These pins are directly next to each other. If the 5 pin was there, it would be just 3 posts. There's a piece of wood in between the 4 and the 6. She has to play that wood, try to take everything out, and it will go. That is another spare, the 4th mark of the game for Sarah Wright, the 4th spare. She has crossed the 100 threshold. That is 109 plus a ball for Sarah Wright. Sarah Wright on fire. She's definitely trying to pile on the total and pad the stats out for the total to try to get those 4 points for the total. Sarah Wright understands the assignment. 100 plus a ball for Sarah Wright in the 9th. Lane 6. That's Sarah Wright on lane 6. 1-3 pocket, and it's a strike for Sarah Wright. Everyone, including Win, cheering that on. That's a spare fill with 10. You and I'm a little excited here. This is 120 plus a ball for Sarah Wright. Let me run a couple of numbers here. What is her season high single? 128 versus Kevin Martell in round 14 at a home game was Sarah Wright's previous high single. She has 2 balls for this fill. Let's see if Sarah Wright can exceed her 128 high single now. She fires. She's off the headpin in the right. That's okay. That's why you get 2. Takes out a few. She's currently at 123. That's a 3 fill so far, but she gets 1 more. If she gets 8, she ties her high single. If she gets more than 8, that's a new high single. Sarah Wright shooting for a new high single. 7-8. That's a tie for her high single. 128, game 4 for Sarah Wright. Should be 128. There was a late falling pin. The Cubica system didn't quite pick up on it. I think Win Trafton is actually just score correcting that right now. So just give me 1 second just to make sure that is correct, but by my accounts it should be 128. And Win Trafton has made it official. That is 128 for Sarah Wright. And that is all right. So Win Trafton, he's got to have a blockbuster second half to make up the differential here. He has 53 after 5. Sarah Wright had 3 marks in the second half here of the 4th game. Win Trafton has some work to do here at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. You are watching the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. I'm Steve Kelly. That's Win Trafton in the yellow on lane 6 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Trafton fires on the 1-3 pocket, and wow, guns ablazing, nearly gets a strike. The pin a piece of deadwood curling around the 10 pin. Almost a hammer strike. Win Trafton definitely wants a piece of that 128 that Sarah Wright just threw, tying with her high single for the season. Late in the season, but still setting records, or at least tying with records. And we'll talk about the spares, too. Sarah Wright with 4 spares in a single game and a strike, 5 marks. Half the game was marks for Sarah Wright. Win Trafton will take a 9 box. Bit of a jittery second and third box, missing the single pin spare and 10 both times. 62 after 6 for Win Trafton. Compare that to 64 and 6 for Sarah Wright at the same point in the game. So Win Trafton needs marks. He's off the head pin to the left, dropping 7. The 1, the 3, and the 7 pins are on the deck for Win Trafton. Sarah Wright with 9 spares and 2 strikes for the match. Win Trafton with 2 strikes and 6 spares. Make that 7 spares, because that's another spare for Win Trafton. I said spare, not strike. 72 plus a ball after 7 from Win Trafton. Sarah had a 6 fill at this point to get to 80 after 74. Win Trafton is going to need 8 to match that. These are all just fun facts. And Win Trafton, not disappointing. He gets a strike on spare. Amazing job by Win Trafton. That's 92 plus a ball, plus 2 balls after 8 for Win Trafton. Pinsetter can't keep up with the amount of marks being thrown today in this D-class match between 2 playoff contenders, Sarah Wright and Win Trafton here at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. I find this amazing. Sarah was lamenting to me earlier that she didn't want to bowl on these lanes 5 and 6 after her somewhat kind of underwhelming performance in the All-Star Review tournament today. But you know what? I think she's feeling a lot better after that 128 that she threw. Win Trafton, meanwhile, with a strike, 92 after 8. On the pocket to the left, dropping 5 after the first ball. 4 horsemen right side plus the 7 pin. He still has 1 more ball to complete the fill. Let's see what Win Trafton can do. It's a 4 horseman right side plus a 7 pin. Will Win Trafton get it? He runs down the right side 4 horsemen, hits it the right way, but he's left with the 7 pin, which is very stubborn and doesn't fall, and that was only because a piece of flying deadwood didn't hit the sidewall at the right angle to take it out. 101 after 8 for Win Trafton, completing that 9 fill on the strike. And he misses. That's a 9 box. Not a big loss there, but believe it or not, these bowlers are tied in the 9th. 110 versus 110 in the 9th. Win Trafton needs a strike in an 8 fill or a spare in an 8 fill to reach 128 or higher. But this is effectively B class and the D class right here. Win Trafton, Class D for destruction, and he drops 8.5. 9, drops 9. We have a match, folks. This is going to get wild. Win Trafton's dropped 9. This is a single pin spare. If he gets this spare and then an 8 fill, he will tie Sarah with 128. Stay tuned. Will he get it? Looks like it. He will get a spare. Win Trafton's not going to let Sarah have this, will he? He's at 120 plus a ball. Oh my goodness, look at this. Stat that. Clip that. Would you believe this is D-class? This is unbelievable. Class D for destruction, Class D for demolition, Class D for all of the superlatives, all of the verbs, all of the hyperbole. And Win Trafton will take a 7, Phil. 127. 127. Sarah Wright will take the 4th game, but only by 1. Win Trafton with 127. Sarah Wright with 128. Sarah Wright will take the 4th game by 1. Win Trafton retains the match by 4. Both bowlers have taken 2 games and 4 points apiece, and the match total is within 4. That is playoff bowling. That is the best of Class D. See, the letters don't matter. You can have any bowler can get hot at any point, no matter what class it is. Look at this. Again, I'm sitting here kind of stunned, and I'm just watching the dang game. So, okay, so they are tied 4 for 4 in the 4th of 5, and so how do I explain this? I feel like every time I explain this, I should have something written, and I have to kind of mentally combobulate this. But anyways, so the 5th game is important if the bowlers are tied up to this point. Why? Because the grand total pinfall is worth 4 points, and the 5th game is worth 2. And so you might be asking, what the heck does that mean? Basically, the 5th game is worth 6 points, because if you can win the 5th and take total, sometimes you might win and not take total, as we saw with Jonathan Hogan versus Brian Hebert. That can, depends on where it lands, but you can potentially take 6 points in the 5th game. And in this case, Sarah Wright and Win Trafton are 4 points within one another within the total. And up to this point, they've both taken 5 points apiece. So that's crazy, right? That's you now understand mathematically the 5th game suddenly adds a whole lot more weight. And both bowlers just bowled amazing 4th games here, 127 and 128 respectively. Both bowlers averaging well over 100 today for the D class. Sarah Wright, meanwhile, she's looking at the 4-7 for a 10 box. She'll take an 8 box to start out this 5th and final game here at the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. Glad to have you along, folks. I'm Steve Kelly. This is Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Good as always to have you along. This Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour late regular season match between Sarah Wright and Win Trafton, both bowlers in the playoffs. They are in playoff contention. They're bowling today mostly just for bragging rights, additional stats and superlatives. And Sarah Wright with a 9 drop. Pins dancing around the 5 pin. And only the 5 pin for a spare opportunity. Sarah Wright versus the 5 pin at Leda Lanes on lane 5. Sarah Wright 8 after 1. Getting ready to release, she fires, and for the spare, and she plays the wood, which I don't know if that was intentional or not, but the wood doesn't play nice. The wood doesn't play back. Sarah Wright for a 10 box versus the 5 pin. Sarah winds up. The pitch, play action. Misses the 5 pin for a 9 box. 17 after 2 for Sarah Wright now. Anyways, yes, so I keep saying Leda Lanes. We'll talk about Leda Lanes a little more. So there's Kegler's Den at Leda Lanes, which is it's a very nice large bar and kind of has the interesting lighting theme going on, and I don't know, I really like the aesthetic. And if you're bowling at Leda Lanes during the week at night, it wouldn't be a league at Leda Lanes without Dave Simino getting on the microphone before at the start of every league going, "Attention bowlers, please finish your warm-up frames. We'll be changing the scoring in just a moment." And then he announces whatever announcements he has or upcoming tournaments or any points of interest in the upcoming leagues, such as the upcoming summer leagues here at Leda Lanes and all of that. So yes, Kegler's Den at Leda Lanes is the bar, which offers taps, drinks, food, entertainment, karaoke, plenty of other stuff. And Sarah Wright struggling to get some marks here. She dropped 8, and she was going for the 5 and the 8, and there was a piece of wood in front of it all, which just kind of redirected the ball away. So fun fact, the term kegler is a term used to refer to a participant in a bowling game. It's an old term originating from the German word kegel, which means bowling pin. This is often used in a rather humorous or informal context when referring to the modern game of bowling. So if you are bowling and you want to be a hipster about it, consider yourself a kegler. Sarah Wright, 25 after 3. That was trivia provided by Microsoft Copilot, by the way, in case anyone was wondering. Sarah Wright on the head pin on the 1-3 pocket, nearly gets a hammer strike. She drops everything but the 7 pin on the deck. And while we're on the topic of Kegler's Den, Eric Vadney, just want to always mention him. He was a fantastic bartender at Kegler's Den at Leda Lanes. He passed away on July 2nd of 2023. For over 15 years at Leda Lanes, Eric was a guy who would come around the corner. He knew your name half the time. He knew what you wanted half the time. And just want to continually always mention his name, mourn his passing. Check out the lobster that's in commemoration for him if you're ever visiting Kegler's Den at Leda Lanes. Just Eric Vadney, just heart goes out to you, and pour one out for him. Sarah Wright dropping 9, missing the spare, and the deadwood redirects the ball. That's another 9 for Sarah Wright. A markless 34 after 4 for Sarah Wright at this point in the game. Leda Lanes is located to what used to be called the Kahala Chinese restaurant and later the Grand Buffet. Both are now gone. The whole entire plaza there has been demolished and is being rebuilt into a new shopping plaza. Whole construction going on over there now by North Point Construction Management. The Kahala was often advertised during the WNDS Stars and Strikes show. Sarah Wright drops 7, the 6, 7, 10 on the deck on lane 5. And it's going to be what looks like mostly favorable wood. Although it's deceptive. You can't ever say for sure if it's going to be favorable wood because this is Candlepin bowling after all. Sarah fires and, oh boy, she hits the object wood, but it only takes out the 10 pin somehow, leaving the 6 and 7 unharmed. For an 8, 9, or 10 box for Sarah Wright, coming off of a 128 game 4. Wright fires. Play action, takes the 6 pin out for another 9 box. She's going to conclude with a rather quiet 43 half for Sarah Wright. We're going to be welcoming Win Trafton back to lanes 5 and lane 5 specifically for this half at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Say hello to Win Trafton once again. That's Trafton in the yellow on lane 5. That's Win Trafton. I'm Steve Kelly. This is the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. D-Class North. B-Class in the D-Class, I might call it. Win Trafton punches out to the right. 3 out to start out his 5th game. Half Worcester plus a friend, plus the 5 pin. See if Win Trafton can get a spare off of this. Not quite. He misses the object pin. Object pocket, left with the 1, 6, 10. 4 horsemen right side minus the 3 pin on lane 5. Win Trafton releases for a 7, 8, 9, or 10, and he's going to take a 9. 9 after 1, compare that to Sarah Wright's 8 after 1. In the 5th game of 5, point spread is relatively even. If either bowler goes on a hot streak here in the 5th game, that can net them a big amount of points. And as we were talking earlier, if Sarah Wright can really pull out a big win against Win, take the win out of Win, then Sarah will stand to get even better playoff positioning. Maybe even become the division leader, if I ran the numbers on that correctly. Someone in the comments can verify that for me if you have some spare time. Win Trafton with a 7 drop, and then he takes out those 7. For a spare, the first mark of the 5th game here, 19 plus a ball after 2 for Win Trafton. I believe he was left with the 2, the 4, and the 5, the triangle, and he took out the triangle for the spare. Win Trafton, 19 after 2, pending a ball fill. Lane 5 on the pocket, on the 1-2 pocket, drops 7, leaving the 7, the 9, and the 5. 7 drop for Win Trafton, that's 26 after 2. So that's 1 mark for Win Trafton. Win Trafton for the day, 3 strikes, 9 spares. Sarah Wright, 2 strikes, 9 spares. Win Trafton with another spare. Takes out the trio, takes out the 3 musketeers of pins for 36 plus a ball after 3. That's Win Trafton in the yellow, bowling on lane 5 here at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Bunch of rowdy kids behind me. I don't know if you can hear them or not, but very excited. It's always nice to see a busy bowling alley, so I'm never really mad about any noise that's happening at bowling because Candlepin Bowling Alley, because Candlepin Bowling is a sport that could use all the help it can get. So if you see folks here, especially on a sunny day where they've decided to go bowling instead of being outside, hey, all power to the bowling alley. Win Trafton with a 5 drop and a 5 fill, and the 4 horseman right side plus the 8 pin. He takes out only the head pin for 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 box opportunity for Win Trafton. He's at 41 after 3. This is for the 10 box. He releases, and he takes out 2 more. That's an 8 box for Win Trafton. 49 after 4 for Mr. Trafton. He has exceeded Sarah Wright's half already in the 4th, with Sarah Wright with a markless 43 half. Trafton looking for his 3rd mark of the game. Will it be a strike? It is a strike. Wow, he must have heard me. Jeez. Win Trafton will finish with a powerful 59 half. 59 plus 2 balls for the fill for Win Trafton. He will complete that half upon returning to the lanes, but we're now going to say hello to Sarah Wright once again, trailing Win Trafton by a fair amount, by 16 so far. Sarah Wright coming off of a 128, which was her previous high single for the season. She's tied it. She's officially gotten it twice. But Sarah Wright with 43 after 5. We're going to see what Sarah Wright can do here at Leda Lanes. Leda Lanes has many large tournaments throughout the year, including the Luck of the Irish, Halloween Scramble, and of course Ray's Easter Classic, the latter of which is a 20-game tournament that brings out the best bowlers from both the U.S. and Canada for a huge Easter Sunday Super Bowl of sorts. Sarah with what appears to be a 3 drop drops nearly a spare on her second ball, leaving only the 10 pin. She hit it the right way, just the right velocity, but the spread of the pins just didn't take out the 10 pin, but she will not get the 10 pin. Another 9 box for Sarah Wright, her 3rd in a row. 52 after 6 for Sarah Wright now. That is confirmed. Again, apologies for some of the sporadic score errors that I made on my part. This is always a little interesting, verifying it between the automatic score system, which sometimes can get things wrong in its own right, and then the paper copy, which I have to kind of run an eyeball while running everything else. So appreciate your patience on that. Remember, the on-stream scoreboard is always unofficial. It's as close as I can try to reasonably get it. Sarah Wright dropping 9. The 5 pin is all that's standing, a piece of wood deciding where it wants to determine its final resting place, which will be in the left side channel. 2 pieces of wood in both channels, and the 5 pin. A nice symmetrical visual right there. Sarah Wright for a single pin spare. She fires, play action, and she will get it. That's another mark for Sarah Wright. Plenty of marks this match, that is. Spare for Sarah Wright, her 1st of the 5th, 62 plus a ball after 7 for Ms. Sarah Wright. Glad to have you guys along for the ride here at Leda Lanes, or whenever, wherever you're watching. Appreciate it. New or returning, always appreciate it. Sarah Wright filling that spare with a disappointing 2. Right side half Worcester, the 3 and the 9 pins taken out. That puts her at 64 after 7 for Sarah Wright. Half Worcester spare shot for Sarah Wright coming up right here on lane 6. And she's on the pocket. It was a good bid. The 5 and the 6 are all that's left. She hit the right pocket in the right manner. It's just sometimes pins don't fall. 5 and 6 for a 9 or 10 for Sarah Wright. This is a situation where you just got to pick a stick. And Sarah Wright chooses the 5 pin, leaving the 6 pin. 9 box for Sarah Wright, 73 after 8. Here nearing the end of Sarah Wright's 5-game series. She's at 506 plus up to this point. We're having a fantastic time here at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire, watching Sarah Wright bowl against Win Trafton here on the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour, Class D North. Hope this broadcast finds you well. Everyone involved here, from the bowlers to the staff you cannot see all around me, I appreciate your viewership and interest in this live stream, as well as Candlepin bowling as a whole. Sarah Wright dropping 6. The 3, the 4, the 6, and the 10 pins are on the deck. Sarah Wright going for a spare now. She will take out the 4 pin and nothing else, leaving the 3, the 6, and the 10 pins on the deck for a 7, 8, 9, or 10 box possibility. Folks, if you live in the area or are willing to make the pilgrimage, the Candlepin bowling community would absolutely appreciate your interest in visitation. We were recently on Jeopardy as a clue, actually. Sarah Wright will take a 10 box. But check out candlepin.org and click Go Bowling to find your nearest center to give this unique regional sport a try. Recently featured on Jeopardy, I might add. I think either last night or the night before, one of those nights. It was the talk of the town on Candlepin Chat on Facebook. Sarah Wright, lane 6, on the head pin. 4 and the 7 pins are all that's left after that 8 drop with a piece of wood across the 4 and the 7. This might be the mark break that Sarah Wright is probably looking for after a single mark 83 after 9 with a spare 2 in the 6th, in the 7th that is. Sarah will very, very gently putt the ball towards the 4 and the 7 pins for another spare. That will be the last mark of the day for Sarah Wright statistically, with 2 strikes and 11 spares for the day. And Sarah Wright also has had 8 tens for the day. 2 strikes, 11 spares, 8 tens. Perfect box percentage of 42 so far for Sarah today. Sarah Wright will fill that spare with a generous 8. That will put her over 100 once again, 101. For a 5 games total of 534 for Sarah Wright. Sarah Wright has done excellent today in terms of average, in terms of series. She's averaged 107 for the day. Excellent, excellent playoff play by Sarah Wright. Definitely an excellent match all around for both of our bowlers. And we're going to see how things shake out. At the moment, it's 6-4 in terms of points before we factor in the totals. I guess if you did factor in the total right now, it would be 10-4 in Sarah Wright's favor. But we'll see what Win Trafton has to say about that. He's on a strike, mind you. First ball, a little bit of a wild pitch. No, it's not quite a lemon drop, I'd say, but it's somewhat close to it. He dropped 2. It was a lemon drop plus a back row pin. Win Trafton for the strike fill. Much better second ball. It's going to be a 7 fill by the looks of it. 66 after 5 is how everything shakes out for Win Trafton to conclude his first half with that strike fill. 3 mark, 66 half for Win Trafton. This is for a 7, 8, 9, or 10 he's shooting for now. Trafton, play action. On the 1-2, will it spin over to take the 8? It won't. Win Trafton concludes the 6 blocks with a 9 for 75 and 6. Compare that to Sarah Wright's 52 after 6. This is now Win Trafton's chance to possibly retake a windfall of potential 6 points here. 4 for the grand total and 2 for the game. We'll see what happens. It all depends on these last 4 boxes here on the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour Class D North match. Let's take a look. That's a 6 drop for Win Trafton. The 4 horsemen right side, 1, 3, 6, and 10 pins on the pocket. Lane 6. Trafton in the yellow releases a little bit too full on the head pin. He wanted to run down the 4 horsemen, which we saw a lot of today for all intents and purposes, all throughout the day. I feel like I've been seeing a lot of successful shots on the 4 horsemen left and right side for both of our bowlers, but Win Trafton will miss once again for 7 blocks, I think. I don't know if Trafton is trying a little bit too hard to focus, but sometimes that leads into some full shots and some frustration. Trafton sits at 82 after 7 with that 7 box, excuse me. Trafton, play action, lane 6, off to the right of the head pin, washes out the right side, and a bit of the left side. The 1, 2, 7, 10 are on the deck. That's what he has to contend with for a spare leave. We're at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. I'm Steve Kelly. That's Win Trafton on lane 6. He releases. And he takes out only the 2, and the 10 pin is wiggling. I don't think it's going to fall. He's left with the 1, 7, 10. This is the WCVB Don Gillis Channel 5 high-low jack plus some wood. 1, 7, 10, piece of wood across the 10 for a 10 box. Trafton fires, misses everything. That's another 7 box for Win Trafton. He's at 89 and 8. He has to get to 101 or better. If we ended the game right now before factoring the total, Sarah Wright has 6 points. Trafton has 4, but we're at uneven points in the game at this point. Trafton with 2 frames to go here. 2 frames to go. Fires. Drops 6, wiggly 6. Left side hay bale, 4, 6, 7, 8. With wood. Favorable wood, I might add. Lots of wood. 4 pieces of dead wood. 3 of them overlap. Across the 4 and the 6. He fires maybe off to the right, but let's see. Yep, a little bit too much off to the right, leaving the 7 pin and the 7 pin only for a 9 or 10 box for a potential 99 and 9. Or 98 if he misses. Trafton versus the 7 pin here. Play action. Gets that 10. 99 in 9 for Win Trafton. Trafton with 6 10s for the match. Wright with 8 10s for the match. And the marks have been definitely action-packed today. Trafton with 4 strikes and 10 spares. Sarah Wright with 2 strikes and 11 spares. There's 1 box remaining for Win Trafton to maybe add another striker spare. We'll see what happens, but late here in the 5th, Trafton needs 2 pins to reach 101. Let's see what happens. Trafton, game in total within 2. Wright holding the game by 2. Trafton holding the total by 2. It comes down to this. Trafton's dropped 3. He's at 102, so he's taken the 5th game now. Trafton on the head pin. Pins fall, but not enough pins fall. 5 and 7, so no marks for Win Trafton. That's it for the marks. 5 and 7 pins are left for an 8, 9, or 10 box. So you can get 109, 108, or 107. It's going to be, looks like 107, I believe, right? Yes, 107. We'll confirm that in just a moment. That's it for the 5th. Where have we landed? Well, Trafton has taken the game by 6 and the total by 10. So before we get to the final stats, we have Win Trafton with a 5-game total of 544 over Sarah Wright's 534. Win Trafton with 107 in the 5th, Sarah Wright with 101 in the 5th. And let's take a look at the final stats. So today it looks like Win Trafton will go 10 and 4. Sarah Wright will go 4 and 10. The adjustment in the... just to make sure, I think I got it. It is 544. Yep, I do have it. Thank you. Just confirm with the paper copy, this is in sync. Thank you, Sarah Wright. So, Win Trafton will move from 147 and 77 to 157 and 81. Sarah Wright will move from 140 and 84 to 144 and 94. So, for the most part, I think in terms of playoff contention, things can mostly stay where they were in terms of where we came in on. But both bowlers with some impressive statistics today. Sarah Wright hitting her high single, tying with her high single once again today. And Win Trafton almost matching Sarah Wright. Total for total in the 4th, 127 to 128. Win Trafton started out with 2 for 2 and 1 and 2. Sarah Wright then swayed back for 2 and 2 in games 3 and 4. And then the 5th game, Trafton was able to pull out the 6 points win in the 5th, taking total in the game for the additional 6. Trafton victorious 10 to 4 over Sarah Wright today. So, folks, that should be just about it from us here at Leda Lanes today in Nashua, New Hampshire. If you're new to the world of Candlepin bowling content, I want to thank you for watching. Really, truly, I do, and I hope this was a pleasant viewing experience for you. If you enjoyed what you saw and want to see more, I invite you to strike, comment, and subscribe to the Atlantic Candlepin Single Store page on Facebook, as well as Candlepin Bowling Network, Candlepin Corner, Alley Chat, and the Candlepin Bowling Channel, where all kinds of other videos, streams, and productions are regularly posted, in addition to results and statistics. If you're a returning viewer, though, it's great to have you along, and hope you enjoyed this program. In addition to everyone who is maybe watching this for the first time, there's also podcasts, if you're into podcasts, with The Approach and Ripping the Rack, so checking those out if you feel so inclined. Before we go off the air today, I just want to give some special thanks to ACST League Commissioner Danny Finn, ACST Stats and Numbers Crunched by Micah Imperato, Brian Hebert for the statistical graphics used in this broadcast, the staff at Leda Lanes, Matt Susi, Alexis Woolley, thank you, and you for watching this program. I've been Steve Kelly. I hope you've had a fantastic day. Again, check out Candlepin Bowling Network and Candlepin Corner for some additional fun bowling productions, and check out candlepin.org and click Go Bowling to find your nearest center if you like Candlepin bowling and want to try it out. I've been Steve Kelly for Win Trafton and Sarah Wright, and I hope you have an excellent day. Have a great one, everybody. Happy 420.